Hi everybody, this is Deborah from Embody Nature and I am a trauma and emotional regulation coach. So thanks for joining me today, and if you're new here and it's your first time, we're here to learn about our inner world and what drives us. And if you're returning, I'd love to see you again. Make sure you say hi or pop something in the comments so I just don't feel like I'm just sitting here talking to the wall. I love to know that you're here and that we're connecting in this space. So today I want to talk about something I hear from people all the time. They'll say something like, I'm actually a really calm person, but sometimes I react in ways that surprise even me. Maybe you've had moments like this when something small happens, someone says something the wrong way, maybe a partner pushes a button, a child refuses to listen, like when does that ever happen? Always. A colleague sends a message that feels sharp, and all of a sudden we're reacting in a way that doesn't feel like the real you. And I guess maybe your voice gets louder. Maybe you snap, maybe you shut down, and afterwards you think, where did that come from? You know, that's not who I want to be. That isn't how I want to present myself to the world. And then often this can lead in this cycle where we then feel confused or guilt or shame. So today I want to talk about something really important, and it's why calm people still lose control sometimes. Because this isn't about personality, this is about how our nervous system works and how that shows up for us. So the more that we understand it, the more that we can have a sense of control over how we run our lives. So most of us grew up believing reactions around self-control, you know, how we react, it's all just how we, you know, decide to control ourselves. You know, we got told to stay calm, think before you speak, count to 10, you know, don't let it get to you. And like in these situations, like when did ever any of those statements ever help you? When your nervous system has already, you know, left town. So these reactions don't actually start in the thinking brain. Our reactions start in our nervous system. So, and your nervous system is constantly scanning the environment for one simple thing. It's safety or threat. And so it does this incredibly fast, faster than our conscious mind can manage. So when something happens in a relationship, someone ignores you, someone criticizes you, or someone crosses a boundary, your nervous system picks up on it before your thinking brain even notices what's going on. I have this sometimes happen to me when, you know, my kids actually notice there's a problem with me, my emotions, before I even notice. So sometimes they're so attuned to the environment that when something shifts in me, they pick it before I even do. So it's just the way our body and brain are there to protect ourselves. And we're there, you know, they're designed for this fight and flight response, and it needs to happen quickly, because if we've got some animal chasing us in the jungle, we need to be able to, you know, we don't want to have to think about it. We want to actually just be running or hiding or doing whatever we need to do to keep ourselves safe. And when when our nervous system senses that threat, it automatically shifts into protection mode. And that's what we talk about, this part of our brain, the fight and flight. It is automatic. It does all the automatic things. So I guess the protection could look something like getting defensive. It could be raising your voice, shutting down, withdrawing, or just that general feeling of overwhelmed. And afterwards, when your thinking brain comes back online and just goes like, why did I react like that? But in the moment, your nervous system was driving the car. Hi, Hannah, nice to see you there. What triggers, so we'll talk a little bit about triggers and how it's like the very first thing that starts this whole system happening for us. So people often think triggers are other people's behavior. It's what someone does to you. That could be the trigger. But triggers are actually much deeper than that. So a trigger is when something happened right now, but it activates an old pattern in your nervous system. And this is where it gets confusing, because sometimes it's not what's actually happening right in front of us. It's actually a bit of an ancient pathway that's been activated. And so maybe it's that feeling from our childhood of being criticized, being dismissed, being misunderstood. feeling like we're not good enough, that comes up a lot of time for people, or feeling like we're losing control. And these are kind of our core wounds, and they're the things, if you imagine you had an old wound that never healed right and someone just stuck their finger in it, even if they're not the one that created the wound, it's pressing on something that's there. And so often the reactions connect back to these earlier experiences where our nervous system learnt that certain situations weren't safe. So when something similar happens in the present moment, the body quickly tries to protect you in any way it can, which is sometimes why our reactions can feel bigger than the moment itself. So you might notice your chest is tightening, your stomach's dropping, your heart's racing. These are all signs that our nervous system is shifting into that fight, flight, or shutdown mode. And another part our nervous system does we don't talk about very often is fawn, and that's a part where we might actually become really compliant and really just do things that are kind of sort of self-sabotaging, and we're giving up of ourselves. So that's something that happens too for some people. So sometimes it can be really subtle what is happening, and you might not always see someone's fight and flight system kick into gear. So once that system's activated, it becomes very hard to access calm, thoughtful responses. So like all things, I was reflecting on this week because I actually had an experience in the last couple of days. I found myself in a moment of conflict. And I generally see myself as being calm, but I got dragged into it and my nervous system played this out. And so what became really obvious that it wasn't just two people talking anymore. It was two nervous systems, and two traumatized nervous systems that were both wired for danger playing against each other in this conflict. That kind of seemed to go on and on. So you could almost feel this push and pull and this dance that often happens when you're in conflict. So the other person's nervous system was getting bigger in our interaction and sort of pushing harder and questioning more and trying to pull me into the conversation. And when I stepped back and sort of reflected, I could see that underneath this, it was possibly an abandonment wound being activated for this person. And their nervous system was reaching for connection, but how I was interpreting that was as pressure. And there's sort of the infinity cycle they talk about in relationships, where if one person's pursuing, the other person can be kind of almost running away. So my nervous system started initially to be the pleaser and to try to explain myself and to connect and to soften things and to help the other person. But when that didn't sort of shift that dynamic, my system began to retreat, and suddenly we were caught in this very familiar pattern. One nervous system pushing for connection and the other pulling away to find safety. And the more that happens, the more the cycle escalates. And ultimately, no one feels understood. No one's needs are getting met in this moment. And what it reminds me of is, like, conflict at its core, it's not actually about the words being spoken, although sometimes that can really play into it, but it is actually about these two nervous systems trying to protect themselves at the same time. And that's where things can get a bit chaotic. So looking at the nervous system loop, so there's also a pattern that many people get stuck in. Something happens, this nervous system reacts, and you get defensive, you shut down, you say something quickly, and afterwards comes the guilt or the regret. And that guilt actually adds more stress onto the nervous system, which really perpetuates the cycle. And that means next time something similar happens, your system is already more reactive. And the way our brain works is it learns these pathways. So if over time we've reacted in a certain way in relationships over and over again, it really solidifies that pathway. So we jump there quicker every time, because the brain really wants to be lazy ultimately and wants to find that quickest pathway and try to be efficient for you. So it goes, this is happening, I need to do this. And so it takes a little bit of time to rewire that and change the pathway. So people can get stuck in a nervous system loop, which is like the trigger, then your reaction, then the guilt, then the stress, and then we repeat that cycle again. And the more times you repeat something, this pathway is set up so clearly. And it's not about using more willpower to get through this. It's about understanding how your nervous system is working and being able to reflect on what's going on for you. So you can't think your way out of a nervous system reaction, because when you're in that fight and flight mode, that clever part of your brain is really offline. All the energy is going into that bottom part of your brain to make sure that you stay safe. So you have to learn to work with your nervous system instead. I look at a bit of a model of, regulate, relate, and thrive. So this is actually some of the work that I do, because real change doesn't start with trying harder to control your actions. It starts with learning how to regulate your nervous system. So when your nervous system is more regulated, you notice triggers earlier. You can see what's happening. Your reactions can slow down. You can sort of ask yourself, I wonder what's going on for me right now. Even naming it, being able to name, I'm feeling triggered right now. And I wonder if that's pressed my core wound of abandonment or my core wound of I'm not good enough. And just noticing that can take the power away from it and slow that system down. And that means your reactions can come a bit more slower and become a bit more thoughtful. So creating space between trigger and response is what we're looking at achieving here. And there's lots of ways that we can do that. And from that place, relationships begin to shift. Communication becomes easier. Connection becomes possible again, because if we're stopping to wonder what's going on for ourselves, the next obvious question is, why am I triggered by this? But then what's happening for that other person too, if we're both in that conflict together? So if we can think about that, connection is much more possible, which is where we're able to relate and thrive better in our world. So this sort of flows on to the work that I do in neurotransformative therapy and timeline therapy, where we can actually go back to the core and the source and really work at the deeper level of changing those nervous system responses at a deeper level, so it doesn't feel like it's just you doing all the work all the time. So if you do feel like getting in touch and exploring how we could work together in that way, feel free to DM me. I'm happy to chat and let you know how we can work together more in that space. But yeah, I just want to finish by saying, if you're someone who generally sees yourself as a calm person, or you'd like to find more calm in your world, maybe you're just finding that your reactions are getting more solidified because your nervous system has trapped them in, and you really want to make some changes. Change is possible. So yeah, please know there's nothing wrong with you. This is how your nervous system was designed. And a nervous system simply learnt those patterns that were trying to protect you. So we're able to say now, it's time to change those patterns if you're really wanting to look at things changing in your world and having better relationships as the ultimate goal. And your nervous system can learn new patterns. We have neuroplasticity in our brains. We can actually learn and create new neural pathways, which is incredible. And they can actually happen really quickly as well, particularly when we're doing some of the subconscious therapies. Because when your nervous system begins to feel safer, you don't have to force calm anymore. Calm starts to become more of a natural state for you again. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments if there was something that really stood out for you, or message me. I'd love to hear what you got out of this. And if there's areas that you'd really like me to explore more deeply with you, I'm happy to do that as well. But have a great Saturday. It is beautiful and sunny here in Adelaide, and I've been out for my 10K run in the national park, and it was so lovely. I'm so excited to be here, to connect with you, and I hope you have an amazing day. See ya.